Britain's historic houses chart the social, cultural, and political story of this ancient land. The collections held within their walls bring history to life. As a judge for this year's Historic Houses Collections Award, in partnership with fine art auction house Dreweatts, I'm visiting all 6 shortlisted houses, meeting the owners, curators, and conservators who work tirelessly to preserve these treasures for the future. I'm here in the Scottish borders at Abbotsford, home to Sir Walter Scott, who was one of the leading writers of the 19th century and also a collector. He built Abbotsford in order to house his extensive collection, and I cannot wait to get inside and explore.
Hello, welcome to Abbotsford.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. It's so nice to meet you, and wonderful to be in Scotland.
Yes, at Sir Walter Scott's former home.
What an entrance hall. I mean, this was not what I was expecting. It was built in the 19th century, is that right?
Exactly. You know, this is a Georgian building. This is an 1820s construction, but it feels like it stepped straight out of the 16th century with all of the heraldry and the hunting trophies, very baronial feel.
Yes.
And that was quite deliberate. That was Scott kind of mimicking stepping into the past because, of course, he was a historical writer. He wrote novels. A lot of historic houses are about power and prestige and, you know, very, very valuable items. For Scott, actually, it was about showcasing stories and kind of absorbing them so that he could tell them to the reading public. Right. And a lot of these items have amazing stories associated with them. So, Julie, this is what Sir Walter Scott called the handsomest room in Scotland. He was a little biased.
The room we see today is pretty much how the room was when he was living here?
Exactly, and I think that's one of the most special things about Abbotsford, because Scott was phenomenally famous when he died in 1832. Very quickly after his death, only a few months, the house opens to the public formally, which is very, very quick. Very unusual.
And very unusual,
exactly.
Yes.
And people are kind of wanting to see these rooms as a shrine. So the family leave things as they are. They make very little change. So the books that you see in this wonderful room are all sitting in the positions that Scott left them.
Wow.
And that gives us a really good sense of how he used this library as a historical research library to fuel his imagination for his novels.
He was not just a literary genius, but he also was a collector. Is
Absolutely.
that right?
Yeah, and I think at heart, collecting stories was what fired him up, and he had to find a way to pass them on, and it was writing that he sort of settled on to do that. But he was also very famous for his sort of dinner entertainments and tours he would give of his home during his lifetime, where friends and visitors would effectively get, you know, a version of what we still do today, where you're introduced to objects and kind of fall in love with their stories. And yes, we've got, you know, emperors, we've got royalty, you know, the real sort of powerhouses of the past. But we've also got, you know, members of Scott's own family represented here. We have completely anonymous people. There's an oatcake crumb. I don't know if you spotted that. One of our most famous items. This was effectively part of a man's last ration on the battlefield of Culloden. So, you know, Jacobite, the last big pitched battle on British soil with the Jacobites against the government forces. This was salvaged from a dead Highlander's pocket on the field.
Oh my goodness.
And it was gifted by another collector friend to Scott. So it's actually, I mean, it has no financial value, of course not.
No,
but it's actually,
a story.
It's a man's last morsel, and it suddenly opens up this whole story about the futility of war and, you know, the sacrifice people were making. And that's what Scott was about.
Yes.
You know, he was as interested in the ordinary man as, you know, the people right at the top of society.
Right, as in Napoleon here, which I see we've got Napoleon's pen case.
Yeah, and the blotter, and they came from the captured baggage train after Waterloo, because of course that's happening during Scott's lifetime.
Of course.
And he can't wait to get over to Belgium, and 6 weeks after the battle start collecting things associated with it. He realised that, you know, history isn't just looking backwards, it's also history is in the making all of the time, and these things will be stories of the future.
So of course, this isn't the entire collection. Can you tell me a little bit more about the wider collection within the house?
Actually, for the size of the house is pretty vast. We're talking about between 6,000 or so objects. We have almost 10,000 books in this room, but we have an archive that we're working through at the minute, the family archive of the Scott family, which has tens of thousands of items in it.
It's wonderful, and what a treat for me to come in here and have this fantastic chat with you and learn not just more about Sir Walter Scott himself as a person, but also about really the care that he took in his collection.
And I think it's still teaching us, valuable lessons today. Right down to the placement of items and how they interrelate. It's remarkably clever. It's like stepping into a brain, Scott's brain.
Yes, exactly.
And, I quite like it there. So.